Welcome back to Bragg N Bout Business, brought to you by Cowboy Trail Brewery. Cheers to the West. Today we're talking to someone who spent 2 decades studying grizzly bears before she ever looked at a ballot box. Sarah Elmeligi is a PhD biologist, the MLA for Banff-Kananaskis, and a former small business owner who understands the intentionality of living and working in rural Alberta. We're diving into her book, What Bears Teach Us, to talk about the patience and resilience every entrepreneur needs right now. And we're getting the exclusive on her plans for the 2027 election. Don't worry, if you lean left, right, or vote right down the middle, we don't get political. But Sarah represents all of us in the legislature, so we should get to know her. Let's get into it with Sarah. Enjoy. Sarah Elmeligi.
Yeah.
Welcome to Bragg N Bout Business.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's a small business podcast centered in Bragg Creek, and you are our Minister of the Legislative Assembly
Yep.
for this part of Alberta.
I am the MLA for Banff-Kananaskis. So our riding stretches from Lake Louise to Springbank, north through the Ghost, and down to Millerville and Priddis.
That's a lot of dirt.
It is, but it's, in my opinion, the best dirt in all of Alberta.
It is.
I often say in the legislature that I have the prettiest riding in the province. And I feel really lucky to have a riding where no one community pulls the vote.
Right.
Like the population is actually really pretty equally distributed across the riding, across issues, and all of our communities are really awesome and filled with really great people. So I feel really lucky to have the riding that we have and to be in this role right now.
Absolutely. And you're in a unique position because you are really the only NDP MLA that has 100% rural territory.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I certainly love waving that flag in our caucus meetings all the time.
I can imagine. Now, we're not here to talk about politics today.
No, right.
We're here today to get to know Sarah.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, how did you end up getting into politics? Because you are a doctor in biology.
Yeah. So
good golly.
Yeah. So I have my PhD really working with grizzly bears and people and how we share the landscape. My research really was working in park spaces. So in Alberta and in BC, looking at like the impacts of recreational activity on grizzly bears and how we share this landscape with grizzly bears, right? It's not easy for us and it's not easy for bears either.
I can't imagine.
Before becoming an MLA, I worked in this wildlife ecology, landscape ecology kind of space, lots of land use planning. And I spent a lot of my time working for environmental nonprofits or working in academia, publishing research. And that's really, at the end of the day, a lot of that work is about trying to influence government policy and regulations around wildlife or land use planning or whatever. And then I went through a phase when we had the first UCP government with Jason Kenney. They were making a lot of decisions around parks and coal mining that I just didn't like. But I started to really feel like my views and my values were not being represented in the conversation.
So that was the trigger for you.
Yeah. So that was
politics. Okay.
Sort of. Then the NDP asked me if I would run, and I was like, no.
Are you crazy?
I'm not a politician. I'm a biologist.
That's right.
But then, I thought about it and talked about it with my husband, my daughters, and had their support and encouragement. And I was like, well, maybe I'll try being at the decision-making table as a decision maker instead of trying to influence policy from the outside. And I thought I'd give it a shot. And, the good people of Banff-Kananaskis chose me. And so here I am.
And this is your first term?
This is my first term.
So you're batting 1,000 right now.
So far, so good. So we're coming up on 3 years. And I mean, it's the most interesting job I've ever had.
It has to be.
It's so diverse. I really came into it from wanting to work on environmental and wildlife issues. Obviously, that's my background. But when you're MLA, there is no more intimate way to get to know your community.
Mm-hmm.
People share things with you when you're an MLA about their struggles and their life. And they share things with you in a way that they probably wouldn't if you weren't in that position. And that has been really eye-opening for me, just to learn more about the people in our communities and how they live and the challenges that they face. And so I've learned a lot about like healthcare and education and transportation and tourism management.
I can imagine.
And the list goes on and on. So yeah, it's been a really interesting role.
For sure. Talking about small business then, in your meetings, you're very active in the communities. Like you're in Bragg Creek at least once a month.
At least, yeah.
Mabel and Marie's, you're having your
Yep.
coffee chats there. In talking with Bragg Creek businesses, is there any concerns or synergies that these different communities have together between like Canmore, Banff, Bragg Creek?
Yeah, what's really interesting about this riding is like two things I've come to notice. So one is that everybody who lives in whatever community across Banff-Kananaskis has very intentionally chosen to live there. So there is this intentionality around, like, I am living in Bragg Creek or I'm living in Redwood Meadows because XYZ. Because quite frankly, if we didn't have that, people would just live in Calgary.
Right.
Right? Because
Exactly.
there's work there and it's cheaper to
Convenient.
live there. It's more
Yes.
convenient. It is really interesting when you talk to people that like everybody's starting from that place. And most of the reasons why people choose to live here have something to do with the outdoors. They want a garden. They want to look at the mountains from their kitchen window when they're making their morning coffee. They want to be mountain biking and hiking and walking the dog and bird watching or whatever it is. So we all have this interest in the outdoors as common ground across the riding, which is really cool. And I think I see that reflected in a lot of our small businesses too, because when you're attracted to live in a smaller community because of the outdoors, you have to be a little creative about how you make money to stay
Very
there.
true.
And so I think we have a really strong, like across the riding, and especially in a hamlet like Bragg Creek, we have this really strong entrepreneurial spirit of people who are like, well, I want to stay living in Bragg Creek, so I'm going to open a coffee shop or I'm going to open a bike shop, or I want to bring some cool things and have little trinkety stores or a bar or whatever. So, or really good baked goods, like,
Awesome, right?
oh my God.
There's so many great bakeries.
So many good bakeries.
Yes.
For a small hamlet, there's a lot of good food here. So we see a lot of creativity and a lot of small businesses that have these really great ideas and are just trying to make a go of it in order to stay in community. And what happens from there is that you have business owners building a business and then building a life, and it becomes a really big part of the community. And that's a really cool thing that doesn't really exist in larger centers where you have more chain stores and more people who own businesses but don't necessarily live in community.
That's right.
And that creates a really cool thing for us here.
Imagine if small businesses in Bragg Creek vanished overnight.
There'd be nothing.
There is no community, just a bunch of houses.
Yeah,
that would
exactly.
be it. Yeah, no,
exactly.
They bind everything together.
Yeah.
Now, you are a small business owner, have been a small business
Yes.
owner in the past, so you know what you're talking about when it comes to running your own company.
Yeah. So I worked in academia doing my PhD and master's. I worked for Alberta Parks and I worked in the nonprofit sector. And eventually I just wanted to strike out on my own. And so before I became MLA, I ran Sarah E Consulting, which was just like an environmental consulting company. I did small contract work for environmental nonprofits and different kind of organizations. Some big contracts, lasting for multiple months and years, and others which were just like kind of one-off small projects for a few $1,000s. Walking away from that to become MLA was the hardest part of the decision,
imagine.
to be
Yes.
honest. I really liked running my own show.
Freedom.
The freedom.
You're not
and
under public scrutiny.
Well, I think when you work with grizzly bears, you're under public scrutiny all the time.
Yeah, probably.
But I definitely like the freedom of like setting my own hours and accepting the contracts that I wanted to accept and not feeling pressured to do work that I didn't want to do because it didn't align with my values or my priorities or whatever, right? That kind of freedom that you have when you're a small business is pretty unique. And I mean, it doesn't generate a lot of money, especially at the beginning, but the job satisfaction is high. For sure.
So can you give us an example of like what kind of consulting you did with a community or a nonprofit?
Yeah. So for example, I did a small contract with an organization called Mistaki based out of Calgary, and they were doing like a wildlife corridor planning exercise in the Crow's Nest Pass. And they were creating this map of like how wildlife corridors could be planned with the municipality of Crow's Nest Pass, how the criteria around corridors could enter into municipal decision-making around area structure plans or land use planning. So I worked with a lot of people on that project. That was a pretty small contract for me where I was like providing advice and how could we represent wildlife corridor criteria in municipal land use planning. I also had a standing contract with CPAWS Southern Alberta, working on their behalf in national park related issues and understanding like the National Park Management Plan and its implementation. And I did land use planning for Alberta parks before, so that was really closely aligned to the work that I had done previously. And I was also on a standing contract with the Alberta chapter of the Wildlife Society as an executive director, which is an organization of wildlife biologists and managers basically coming together to share the latest science and the latest research and talk about how it's being applied to wildlife and landscape management.
Interesting, interesting. So, looking at the research you've done and the work that you've done, it seems very balanced because I think
Yeah.
you understand that there's progress and there's development happening, but you also have to balance that with conservation as well.
Yeah, it's funny you use the word balance. I just got into a little bit of a debate with the Minister of Environment around this word balance. I hate it.
All right.
It's really funny because we talk about balance as if we're weighing two options. Like we're weighing environment and we're weighing development. But when we talk about it like that, whenever we have a hard choice to make, the environment often loses and the
Yes.
development wins in the balance. However, and I think this is something that most people in our riding understand in a way that other parts of the province don't, because we all live closer to the land because we like to be on it
Right.
and in it all
Yes.
the time. It's much more intricated, right? It's not like a balance where you choose between environment and development. A healthy environment leads to a healthy economy and a healthy community and a healthy culture. And all of these things are highly interconnected. So we know and appreciate water, for example,
Yeah, we need it.
in a way in our communities here that I don't think people in Calgary really think about
No.
it, right?
Unless they're big pipeline bursts.
Yeah,
Yes.
then they think about water.
Because it comes from us.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that a healthy environment, healthy watersheds, healthy forests not only provide like drinking water and consistent, reliable, clean drinking water, and also like recreational opportunities and all those things that we love to do outside. But we also have a lot of businesses that rely on a healthy environment.
Yes.
So, you know, especially if they're tourism based or recreation based businesses, or, you know, I'd argue any business that needs water needs a healthy environment too, which is pretty much all of them.
Absolutely it does. Yeah.
So I
no.
think so for me, it's not about balance. It's actually about finding the ways that we can enhance environmental attributes that we benefit from, while also having sustainable development opportunities that help grow our communities and grow our culture as Albertans and Bragg Creekites?
Bragg Creekers.
Bragg Creekers.
Bragg Creekers.
Yeah, that's
I think
better.
I think that's what we go with. Yeah.
So it's trying to find ways to benefit all of it, right?
Without sacrificing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like I don't want to sacrifice community for environment either.
Right.
I want us to be able to live much more in harmony, and I think that that's really possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's a great way that you put that. Yeah, I think that helps people understand
Yeah.
exactly what you're about. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay. So let's go a little bit further. Now
Sure.
you went to school in Australia.
It's where I did my PhD. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but I just studied grizzly bears here. You know, sometimes the universe just hands you a gift
All right.
and you say yes, right? And I had identified the gentleman that I wanted to do my PhD with. His name is Owen Nevin, and he was doing his PhD when I was doing my master's on very similar stuff, grizzly bears, recreationists. And I really liked Owen. And I asked him if he would be my PhD supervisor. And at the time, he was working at a university in England because he's actually British. And I was like, okay, I already had a mortgage at this time. Like I've been living in Canmore for over 10 years.
Wow.
I had a mortgage. I had cats. I was like, look, I'm not doing this if I can't be on a stipend. Like I'm not selling my house to do a PhD.
Yeah.
And so we were looking for granting money, and it was hard to find because I was wanting to do a PhD here in Alberta, but be an international student. And like you can get grants if you're going to a Canadian university and studying in Canada.
Sure.
You can get grants if you're going to an international university and studying internationally. But there's not very many grants that you can like be studying in Canada and be affiliated with an international
I
university.
see.
So it was hard to find scholarships and money. And then I was just about to give up. And Owen was like, well, I accepted a position as the Dean of Graduate Studies at Central Queensland University in Australia. And I think they might have a scholarship program for you. Are you interested? And I was like, I mean, I'm very interested. Grizzly bears are the best because they hibernate all winter, so I don't have to be here. So I basically would spend my summers. I did a lot of remote camera work for my PhD and a visitor survey. So I spent my summers here in the mountains with our grizzly bears in Banff, Jasper, Kootenay. And then bears went into hibernation and I went to Australia for the winter and I came back when they woke up. Like
tough life. You even escaped the winters.
Endless winter for 3 years. This is what I mean. Like the universe hands you a gift. You're like, yes, don't ask questions.
That's
just say
pretty
yes.
great.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
That's a great experience.
Yeah.
So any interesting encounters that you had while you were working with these bears?
You know, I think that the remote camera work is fascinating because you're having these encounters, but they're not in real time.
Right. You're not lying down in the snow with a camera watching these animals.
Which I did in my master's. I was watching bears in real time on the coast, sitting in a boat, watching bear behavior, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
But the remote cameras, one of the things I learned is that there's bears out there.
Yeah, I imagine.
We don't have a huge population of grizzly bears here in the Bow Valley and in Banff-Kananaskis area. We have a decently healthy population. Like it's stayed pretty consistent.
Do we have a count? Like how many there would be?
We think about it. Usually varies between 60-ish, like somewhere around 60 grizzly bears in Banff National Park. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah. We haven't had a DNA population estimate for quite some time, but in this general area, it's like maybe 60 in Banff National Park and, a few dozen more in Kananaskis. So like I can't remember what the exact population estimate is for this area, but it's not as many as people think.
No, I wouldn't think.
But they cover a lot of ground and they're very active. And so, some of the funniest like photos are because everybody knows the boss and split lip and Banff, these two big dominant males. And the funniest pictures are like, a woman running along Vermilion Lakes with her chariot. And she's just like out for this casual run, super chill. And 5 minutes behind her is like the boss walking down the same trail. And I'm like, you might not be so relaxed if you knew that there's like a 600-pound grizzly bear 5 minutes behind you. So I think what I learned is that like grizzly bears are navigating this landscape with people all the time. And we are not seeing them very much on purpose because they don't want to be seen.
That's right.
So this is why we talk about like making noise on a trail and sticking together in a group and having your dogs on leash and stuff, because when you do that, a bear decides whether you're going to see it or not. Yeah. And then all of the decision making is up to the bear. Right. And they're not surprised and they have no reason to react defensively if you see them, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of interesting for me to just see how bears are using the trails that we're also using all the time. Really getting some insight into how their decision making of like when and how to use those trails is really influenced by human activity on those trails. There were other bears, definitely the majority of photos are like at dawn and dusk when people are not active on those trails. Right. There's very few bears like the boss that are just like, I don't care. Most bears are really intentionally using trails when people are not there. And the other really interesting thing is like, and I think we see this a lot more happening out in Bragg Creek also, with the increase in recreation and human activity on this landscape, there's less and less time when people are not there. So there's trails around the town of Banff, for example, where people are going on late night runs at like midnight.
I was going to say this, yes.
Early morning runs at 4. And so there's like a human free window of maybe 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the night.
Brutal.
So for bears that really don't want to be around people and are not habituated or not tolerant of being around people, they have very little time to access those habitats. And that's where we start seeing a higher risk of conflict.
Right. Yeah. I remember I went to a Bragg Creek Wild event here a couple of years ago, and they had Brad Stelfox speaking, and he was talking about the increase in this phenomenon called night hiking.
Yeah.
where people go to West Bragg and they go hiking at night.
Yeah.
So literally, these animals have no chance of peace and quiet
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that necessary?
Like,
I
I
don't
was
know.
amazed. I was like, why are you going for a jog at 2
And what are
a.m.?
you seeing other than darkness? It blows my mind.
Yeah, people do a
Yeah,
lot of weird things out
they
there,
do.
for sure.
They do. My goodness. So, briefly, what is the personality of a bear? Because we all
Well,
think about these preconceived notions and stereotypes of
yeah.
bears.
I mean, that's an impossible question to answer because it's like answering what is the personality of a person.
Okay, so they're all
Right?
unique.
Totally. Bears are really, really smart and they're all very individual. So they all have their own individual personalities, but they're also capable of learning and decision making over time. So who a bear is or what their personality is really depends on like who their mom was and where they grew up and the lessons that their mom taught them, maybe previous interactions that they've had with people or with dogs or any of those kinds of things too. That all feeds into a bear's personality. And so we see some bears like the Boston split lip who are just extremely tolerant of people and do things like that I think are like really funny. Like split lip walked up the Johnson Canyon Trail on a Saturday in July. And I'm just imagining these thousands of people. They're like,
My goodness.
and he's probably just like, yeah, that's right. You should
This
move
is
out of the way.
my
Yeah.
land. Yeah.
You're welcome. I'm going to walk through here now. But then, you know, we also have bears that live in the remote backcountry of Banff National Park in Kananaskis that really don't like to be around people and would never even entertain getting that close to people
Right.
because they just really don't have that same kind of level of tolerance. And who knows why? Like maybe because they just don't. I mean,
They're not people.
there's lots of
bears.
people. Yeah, there's lots of people who don't like to be around people either, right? They're just more
100%.
introverted. And I think the other thing is like I learned in my master's, spending a whole entire summer on the coast with the exact same bears every single day, they learn over time really, really well. So, you know, some bears learned to recognize my boat and they knew that my boat would never get close and I would never
Ah.
do these things. And so they would have different behavior when they saw me than if they saw a tourist boat that might be trying to get closer to them.
Right. Yeah.
So we also, I think, whenever we encounter a bear, we're bringing all of our preconceived notions of what that means. And
Mhm.
a lot of that is based on who we are and maybe past experiences that we've had with bears or things we've been told about bears by the media or by our parents or by our friends.
Sure.
But that bear is the same. That bear is like bringing forward all of its preconceived notions about what a person is and
Right.
what people are and any previous experiences they've had with
Have
people.
they been hazed before?
Have they been hazed before?
Yeah.
They're also bringing forward anything their mom may have taught them about people, about who people are. Are people a source of food or are people a source to be feared or,
Right.
you know, what happens? And so that's why I think anytime we're thinking about a bear encounter, we should just automatically put the focus on us. Like, what can you do to stay safe? And what can you do to control the outcome of that encounter? Because for sure you can't predict that bear
Right.
because you have
don't know who you're
no
dealing with.
idea. Yeah, you don't know who you're dealing with,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like when you're meeting somebody new for the first time, you're like,
Yeah.
whenever you meet somebody new, you're kind of cautious, right?
Right.
You're like, who are you and what are you about? And are we going to be friends?
You put your dog on a leash so a dog doesn't jump all over.
Totally. So, yeah, I think we like to project a lot and, you know, say, well, bears are like this. And the reality is bears are like whoever they're like.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. That makes sense. Now, you wrote a book.
I
You've
did.
done a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a doctorate of biology, you're an MLA, you're a mother, you're a wife, and you wrote a book.
Yeah.
What can bears teach us?
Yeah. So I wrote the book because when you work in academia doing research, you can only say the things that your data says, right? And if your data doesn't say it, you can't say it.
Just the facts.
Just the facts, just the data. And then working in government, well, there's a whole lot of things you can't say when you're working in government, as we all know.
Right.
And I had all this stuff in my head about ways that I have seen bears and observed bears. I've spent a lot of time in bear country watching bears interact with each other, watching them interact with recreationists. And you see their personalities develop and you see the cubs learning from their mom and you see how two siblings can have the same mom but be two totally different bears. And I realized I wanted to write a book, What Bears Teach Us. One of the things bears have taught me is to just be who you are. And I wanted to partner with my good friend, John Marriott, who's a wildlife photographer, because I thought if people could see bears the way that I've seen them, maybe people wouldn't be so quick to think that bears are inherently violent
Or a threat.
a
Yes.
threat, right? Really, bears are trying to avoid conflict because most of the time bears are just trying to get through the day.
They're just trying to get their next meal.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Like me. Yeah, that's it.
Totally. So I wanted to write a book in partnership with John so that we could kind of explore some of these personalities and how some of the human actions, the things that we do in bear habitat, lead to the bear behaviors that we might fear, like lead to aggression. Right. And so, yeah, I wrote a book.
That's
it was
fantastic.
super fun.
So I think there's 3 main traits that you highlight in that book, correct me if I'm wrong, that we can really learn from bears.
Mhm.
One was patience, resilience, and knowing when to
Walk away. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you apply those things from what you learned from bears to maybe business? Because we're talking about business here.
Yeah. So, I mean, patience, I think I see our bears, especially in the parks, they are so patient all the time. Like, you see these tourists who know nothing about bears, and a bear is like feeding on dandelions or whatever.
And they're trying to put a hat on them.
Yeah. They're like, oh, look
Right.
at my selfie with the bear. You're like, oh my God, please don't do that.
Right.
And for some reason we have these bears that are just like, and they don't do anything. And I was thinking one day, I was watching tourists make bad choices in front of a grizzly bear in the ditch. And in my head, I was like, oh, I would make a really bad grizzly bear, because if people were trying to get all up in my business all the time while I'm just eating lunch and I was a bear, I might be like, get out of here, like enough. And for some reason they don't. Right. And those are the really tolerant, habituated bears. And so I think if we think about that in our human interactions, it's like, and in business, like sometimes you're just going to have to sit there and take it. Right. You're going to have bad customers or bad partners who are all up in your business and who are expecting some kind of reaction from you, or who want you to do something like put on a show. And maybe that's not in your best interest. Like maybe your best interest is to just continue to eat your lunch in silence and peace and just like go on your merry way when you're done. So I think, as it relates to business or just human relations, when we can have patience and let the chaos of the world around us just continue to be chaotic, we always have an opportunity to be patient and find stillness. And that's when we can make the best choices.
Yeah.
And in the bear's case, the best choice is to not react and just continue eating so that they can get the calories that they need and then walk away calmly without incident when it's over, right?
Respond, not react.
Yeah.
That's probably a good thing there for sure.
Yeah. So resilience, the chapter about resilience in the book is about polar bears, because polar bears are like so perfectly adapted to live in a northern environment. The structure of their fur and their black nose and their paws and even the color of their tongue, like all of this is adapted to living in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And they're being faced with climate change, which is changing their habitat so rapidly. And so they're being forced into these really unpredictable situations where resilience is key. So it's like being resilient is adapting to your circumstances and also keeping the strength to carry on, right? And I think in small business and in life, you need both of those things all the time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you've been in the Bow Valley now for
almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, I just had my 19th anniversary.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
You would have moved there. I lived in Canmore for a year and a half back in 2007.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Back then, it was fantastic Canmore 20 years ago. It was so quiet.
Yeah.
So much busier.
There's a lot of change that's happened in the last 20 years for sure.
Now, I wish I would have bought real estate then, but.
Yeah. Well, I think it even started changing like 10 or 15 years before I got there, was when the big changes started happening for sure. But right now, we're in such a period of change, I think across the riding, right? Like tourism and outdoor recreation is like coming at us in every community across this riding full force. And we are being forced to be very resilient and adaptable right now, trying to find ways to strategically benefit from tourism as small businesses, I think, and, convince people to stay for a little longer and have a coffee and a snack and maybe have a beer after their ride or whatever, but also trying to retain that community identity and not lose it when you feel like the masses descend on a Saturday
100%,
afternoon.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very hard thing.
It is. So you came to the Bow Valley 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Edmonton.
In Edmonton.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was born in
All right.
Calgary. I grew up in Edmonton. I lived in Drumheller for a while.
All right.
I did my master's in Prince George, and then I moved to Canmore.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And
Yeah.
so what happened? What was the switch to move to Canmore? Was it strictly for biology reasons or?
Well, when I was finishing up my master's in Prince George, I knew I didn't want to stay in Prince George. I have great friends there, actually.
We've got family up there too.
Yeah. I felt so because I grew up in Edmonton, my parents were still in Edmonton. I felt far away from them in Prince George.
It is a hike.
Yeah, it's like over 7 hours driving. And in the winter, it just kind of started to feel far. And then so I really wanted to move to like that Rocky Mountain spine. Like I was looking at like Revelstoke, Golden, Canmore, Fernie, anywhere in there. And I was like, I'll just get a job. Like wherever I get a job, I'll go there. And I got a job working with Yellowstone to Yukon in Canmore. And that was actually perfect because I've been recreating in Canmore since I was a kid. So I was like, yeah, it's
familiar.
like I just get to go to this place I already love. Yeah. And
That's
then I just had to find a way to stay there.
That's how I ended up in Canmore too. They offered me a job in Hinton, kind of covering that Hinton, Prince George route.
Mhm.
And I took a drive out there. I'm like, this is too far.
Yeah.
And so, well, how about Canmore? I'm like, well, why didn't you start with Canmore?
Yeah. Start there.
I would have happily gone. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how I ended up there.
Yeah. I love it. It's not easy to stay in Canmore over the long term. It's very expensive. And I think when you live there, you make sacrifices and kind of maybe not sacrifices isn't the right word, but I made different decisions to stay there.
Yes.
In my career and personally. Like when my husband and I first started dating, he lived in Calgary. And we're like 3 months into dating, like we're not even serious. We had this conversation. I was like, okay, I just want you to know, like, if this gets serious, and I'm not saying it's serious right now, but I'm just saying if it gets serious, I'm not moving to Calgary. And like, period. That is off the table. And he's like, well, does that mean I have to move to Canmore? And I'm like, if we get serious, yeah. And if that's a deal breaker for you, let's just call it quits right now. And he was like, okay, not a deal breaker, but like also just relax. It's like,
this is our 5th date.
I just want to be honest, okay?
That's awesome. You're right. And you twisted his arm and he ended up out there too.
Yeah, it wasn't a hard sell.
And he loves it. Why would it be a hard sell? My God. No, that's fantastic. All right. So we've covered a lot. We could talk for hours really about everything that you've got going on. Got some personal questions for you now.
Sure.
Okay. So if you had to name your top 3 politicians, greatest of all time, Canadian, global, I don't care.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. So like Gandhi is not a politician, but holy, did I love the amount of change that he could accomplish and advocate for through peace. And I think that in this time of divisive politics, and a lot of people are very angry in the political world right now, I think back to like that really basic message of like, love is the answer. And when we come from a place of love and peace, I think we're much more able to work together collaboratively to find solutions.
100%.
So I really, have a lot of respect for Gandhi. And then Jacinda Ardern, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. The way that she handled motherhood and being prime minister during the pandemic and the way she united her people. I was so inspired by her. And there's a documentary coming out about her, actually. I can't wait to see. And Trudeau. No, just joking.
Oh, my God.
It's just like, you can't be an Alberta and say that out loud.
Oh, my God.
You know, I think if I had to think about Canadian politicians. There have actually been a lot of Canadian politicians that I really respect. And I think Canada is a hard country to lead, right? Because we're so diverse and all the provinces are different from each other, but we also have this really diverse multicultural population. You know, I think I really tend to gravitate towards politicians like Elizabeth May because Elizabeth May has like a really strong, powerful voice in Canadian Parliament. But because the Green Party is so small in the federal world, she's not as beholden to like the whole party politics messaging kind of thing.
Right.
So she can really speak her truth in a different way than the leaders of the really big political parties can. And I think I've always admired politicians who are very authentic. I hate the political game.
Yeah.
And
Right.
even now that I'm a politician, I hate it even more. Like, I wish we could all just be who we are and be authentic and speak our truth and represent our people to the best of our abilities. And I think there's a lot of people who go into politics because they want to play this game and be strategic and whatever. And so I'm really attracted to politicians like Elizabeth May that are not, I don't feel like she's playing a game. I feel like she just is like representing her party and her constituents to the best of her ability.
And she says what's on her mind. I don't think she really gives a shit.
No,
Really?
I know.
I'm like, which I kind of like.
That's
You know,
great.
She says it. I mean, I may not agree with everything she says, but I think it's funny.
No,
funny.
yeah,
It's
totally. You
funny.
don't have to agree. Like,
Right.
this is the other thing about politics that I find so fascinating is like, people get so angry about different parties and how you voted and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, imagine if we all voted the same and we all had the same values. Like, how boring would life be?
Right.
Like, disagreeing is at the heart of politics and it's at the heart of democracy.
Healthy debate.
And it's how we disagree and how we listen to each other in disagreement that is the most important part, right? And so I think it's okay that we disagree. I think it's okay that, you know, the Alberta NDP and the United Conservative Party are like very different parties with different values and different ideologies. Like, that's fine. That's great.
Right.
Because in that disagreement, we can have discussion and we can talk about, you know, what are the values of the people that we're representing and how can we compromise and find ways to still represent the people of Alberta, regardless of how they voted. Right. Because ultimately in provincial politics, that's what we're there to do, is to serve the people. So how can we serve the people to the best of our ability?
Exactly. And it is so fractured now. I mean, Canada, I mean, globally, it's insane right now. But even in Canada, we're so fractured politically. Everything seems to be far left or far right.
Yeah.
But I do think most Canadians
are in the middle.
Are right down the middle.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, I think most people are like really just trying to live life. Like, I guess they're just trying to be like bears and just get through the day.
Get food on the table and the kids through school.
Totally. Yeah. And pay the mortgage and pay the bills and be happy and comfortable in life. And so a lot of that, you know, you can have your values that inform like who you are as a person or how you raise your kids or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think politicians we're really just there to make sure that you can live the life that you want to live comfortably. And we get distracted sometimes by the divisiveness of politics. But I really wish we could spend more time just talking about how to serve the people.
Right. The issues, the real tangible issues.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it seems like the loudest people in the room are these ones that are on the fringes of both sides, which that's just my personal opinion on it, but super fresh.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people who feed on that division. And that's kind of unfortunate.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We could have a whole topic.
Yeah.
We could talk.
Yeah, we're not going to get political.
We're not going to get political on this. No, exactly. All right. I got some more quite personal questions for you. I ask everybody this question. Yeah. Do you believe in Bigfoot?
Oh my God. So
any grainy camera footage that you got?
I don't have grainy camera footage, but I do have a story about going to Yosemite and staying in an Airbnb with a guy who turned out to be a Bigfoot researcher. And like, I can't even. Wow.
You hit the lottery.
It was amazing. My husband and I were just like, this guy is real. And he's like, yeah, he had data and videos and photos. Oh. I can't say that I left his house believing in Bigfoot more than when I got there. Let's put it that way. But the entertainment value was top notch.
God, my goodness. That is incredible.
I'll just say, I think there's a lot of things in the forest that we don't know or understand. How's
That's true. That's well said. That is well said. What was your favorite subject in school?
Science.
Yeah. Goes without saying.
Biology, for sure. I was inspired by Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall when I was in elementary school. I thought it was so amazing that these women could just hang out in a jungle with gorillas and monkeys and get to know them and see their personalities and be welcomed into this animal world. I was always fascinated by animal behavior.
So your future was etched then from a young age that you were going to be a biologist. Yeah, that's fantastic. Anything, what did your parents want you to be?
My dad was an engineer, so obviously he wanted me to be an engineer.
Right.
Because everything in life is engineering. He used to tell me that all the time.
Yep.
And my mom, is my mom. Just be whoever you're going to be.
Nice. That's what moms do. Yeah. Now, what do you want your girls to grow up to be?
Whoever they want to be.
Oh, okay.
But my dad was a staunch conservative voter his whole life.
Is that right?
And my mom was a staunch NDP voter her whole life.
Boy.
So we talked a lot about politics in my house. And when I told my dad that I was running to be an MLA, he was like, for the Conservatives? And I was like, oh my God, have we met? No.
There's always hope.
Yeah.
Right? There's always hope for it.
He held out that hope right till the day, till the end. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yep.
What was your first job?
My first job was working at a vet clinic. I was a vet assistant, a cleaner up of diarrhea and vomit.
Oh my God. That's a tough one.
It was a good one. When you're 16, you learn a lot. You're like,
kidding.
yeah, all right. I learned a lot about
Dirt.
working with animals and stuff. Yeah.
What was your worst job?
When I was backpacking in Australia, I had one day of picking green peppers, and it was the worst
Really?
job.
Just because of the heat and the snakes, or what?
It was the heat, and it had rained the night before, so all of these green peppers had been sitting in warming water, and some of them had gone rotten. So you'd stick your hand in, and it would just like go into this like warm, rotten pepper, which just felt so gross. But also the farmer who ran the farm where we were working, just really poor working conditions. There was no water, there was no shade, there was no allowance for us to take breaks.
Oh my God. Sounds like slave labor.
Yeah, it felt like slave labor. And I had some moments where I was just like, holy, this is not cool.
I better stay in school.
Yeah. It definitely made me think about how we should value our temporary foreign workers.
Very true. There you go. 100%.
Yeah.
What's your favorite job?
Well, my favorite job was really my master's work, working on the BC coast, hanging out in a boat, watching bears all day. Right. And it's the coast. And I'm such an Alberta girl that to spend a couple summers living on the coast and just experiencing coastal BC was really, truly magical.
Yeah, that is something else. Excellent. All right.
Oh, and this one.
Well, you got to throw that in. Working for the people.
Obviously, being an MLA, working for the people.
Working for the people. All right. Well, thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on Bragg N Bout Business. It's been interesting getting to know you, and I appreciate the work that you're doing for the people.
Thank you.
I think no matter what side you're on in the aisle and in the legislative, and who you voted for, you have to appreciate people to devote their life to public service.
Yeah, and it's truly an honor. It really is an honor to be an MLA. There's less than 1,000 people who've been MLA in Alberta's history.
Incredible.
And I feel just so privileged and honored to have this role. And it's not something I take lightly. So, I know we're not having a political conversation here, but I am the local politician. And so if there are things that people want to talk to me about, they can reach out and email me anytime, banff.kananaskis@assembly.ab.ca. I'm happy to talk about anything that is concerning or happening in people's lives. I can't do my job and represent the people if the people don't tell me what they need, want, and are concerned about.
That's the connection. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about what we have to do in Bragg Creek to get a secondary egress out of West Bragg.
Oh my God. I've been working on that since day one. It's probably like the most common thing I'm asked about in this community. I think what people have to do is really work with the MD of Rocky View. Before I can act or support anything as the MLA, I think it's better if it comes from the municipal government. So then it's easier for me to take it forward and support it. But I really think that people should contact the local councillor and the MD Reeve. Once there's a route and a way that we can go forward, then I can start advocating for that. But yeah, I kind of need that concrete information first.
I was hoping you could wave a magic wand. But...
Oh man, I've been waving this wand this whole time. It's not magic. Nuts, I think I got a bum wand.
So I sit on the chamber in Bragg.
Yeah.
So we're trying to rally the county, and we've got people working on that project now. But yeah, we need it. Back.
Yeah.
Back.
It's scary when I think about it. And I think we definitely need an egress, and we need to find a solution for sure so that we can get one. Okay. It's a matter of safety.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
And do you want to announce your run in 2027 on the podcast?
Oh,
Right?
well, I will be seeking nomination
Oh, you
to
will?
be the
Okay. All
candidate
righty.
for this riding. As you know, the electoral, or you might not know, but the electoral boundaries are being updated
Oh,
right now.
okay.
So the Electoral Boundaries Commission has released their recommendations, which include a majority report that hopefully the government will accept. And our riding boundary does change a little bit. I wouldn't include Springbank anymore as kind of the biggest change. We called Canmore Banff instead of Banff-Kananaskis. The riding change, I think, is great for us. It's basically just like the smaller communities in the rural landscape. And Springbank would be lumped in with Cochrane. It does help me serve the people of this riding a little bit better, I think. But I can't announce my plan to be the nominee and eventually the candidate until I have final riding boundaries and I know
That
the
makes
space
sense.
that we're working
Okay.
with. So
But you have intention to.
I do have intention
right.
to, and announcements will be coming soon once we know what the
Imagine
riding boundaries
it's coming
are.
up quick. I mean,
Yeah.
we're already a quarter into 2026. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, very much, Sarah.
Thank you
Appreciate
so much. Thanks for having me. This has been really
it.
fun.
Okay. All the best.